they were sterilizing women in these concentration camps, right? I'm not calling those camps anything else. Now, when we talk about immigration, it is a very Central American conversation because it has been framed as an exclusively brown issue in this country when people migrate here from all over the world and commit crimes and do all kinds of egregious acts in this country. And when you talk about immigration, you forget that Haitians immigrate here, people from Africa immigrate here, and that people come here from all over the world who are also Black and have to deal with being immigrants and Black in this country. Now, we talk about this sterilization, and it's no secret they're trying to keep the numbers down. I just want to hear your thoughts on this because I don't even know how to come up with a question anymore about the atrocities that this country, I wouldn't even say the administration, this country and its history and its present is continuously raining down on communities of color. So go ahead.
So these stories aren't new, sadly. We heard what was coming out of the ICE prisons in Georgia. The news broke about 2 weeks ago because Dawn Wooden, a Black nurse who was working in these private ICE prisons, became a whistleblower. She started hearing about a doctor who was performing hysterectomies, forcible sterilization, women who essentially were being violated and their reproductive futures being torn away from them without their consent. And so she caught wind of this man who they started calling the womb collector, right? The uterus collector. And I want to also highlight that one of the women that actually did undergo one of these procedures, who was literally on the plane and about to be deported, she was from Cameroon. However, she left when she was 2. She grew up here. For all intents and purposes, she's an American woman. She's a Black woman from an African country. So I think that, yes, when we talk about immigration in terms of, who's coming from Central America and from Mexico, and you're right, Aida, we people often in the popular discourse think that this is just a brown issue, right? That ultimately oftentimes gets relegated to like the Latino issue box, right? Like immigration, that's your thing. But there's women from all over the African continent. There's Haitian women. I want to shout out a friend, Geraldine Joseph, who runs the Haitian Bridge Project out of San Diego and Tijuana. And she works with Haitian women, with West African women, with Hondureñas, with Salvadoreñas. But going back to this idea of forcible sterilization as a really disgustingly cruel mechanism of the state, this is a slow genocide. This is rooted in the racist history of eugenics. And sadly, the US has blood on its hands from these particular practices and has been engaging in them for centuries. They have done this to Puerto Rican women on the island. They have done this to Black women, African American women here in the United States. They have done this to Native American women. And here in Los Angeles, this was happening as recently as the mid-70s. So there was a group of predominantly Mexican women, some Mexican American, who were going to LA County. Well, now it's LA County USC Medical Center. At that time, it was LA County General Hospital. And one of the units was the LA County Women and Children's Hospital. Now, there's countless women that this happened to. We don't have the exact numbers because so many of them carried the shame and the trauma of having been forcibly sterilized. They went in and they were giving birth. It should have been one of the most happy, momentous days of their lives. But they were coerced and forced to sign these documents for a procedure called tubal ligation. So many of the women ended up forming a class action lawsuit with the help of a young Chicana attorney named Jessica Hernandez. They are popularly known as the Madrigal 10. They sued LA County USC. Sadly, they didn't win. But one of the things that came out of that was that they started making these medical forms in multiple languages. The problem is that some of the women that underwent these forced sterilizations were bilingual. Some of them had limited English skills. Some of them spoke only Spanish. Some of them did understand English. But it wasn't until I started researching for an upcoming independent film that I played one of these women. I didn't understand some of this medical jargon, and I'm a college graduate. I didn't know what some of these words were. So if I'm there experiencing extreme labor pains, and the doctors are all standing over me telling me your baby's going to die if you don't sign this. That's coercion. That's legal duress. That never should have happened. But it happened because those doctors, who were white supremacists, decided that they needed to control the population of Latinas in Los Angeles because we have too many babies. And if we have too many babies, we get political control and we populate the streets, and how the rest of that narrative goes.
Julissa?
I mean, I think Melinna said it all. Those are all the things I would have highlighted, particularly the deep history of this happening. Like, this is not anything new. And, I think, I've talked to you about it, and sorry, I don't mean to like plug in my project here, but this is why I started to do La Historia Uncovered, because there's so much Latinx history, Latino history, Mexican American history that we don't know about. And what happens then is that we view things that are happening today as isolated incidents. We start to view them as something that just started happening with this administration, when in reality, there's a deep-rooted history in this country of trying to stop Black and brown population from growing in the country. So that's the only thing I'll add, which is that, we cannot view these things as though they just started happening, because there's a deep history of it.